Welcome to the Toffee Blues, your source for all things Everton. I'm Ellis Nordoff, and today I'm back with the opposition view for Everton versus Luton in the FA Cup fourth round. I'm joined by Billy from Oak Road Hatter podcast. How you doing, Billy?
Yeah, I'm doing well. Feels like deja vu. But yeah, glad to get another Goodison Park trip under my belt for this season.
Good to see that you're going. You might not get many more chances to go with us moving into the new stadium. You've got one more season, so if you can stay in the league, then, or if we can stay in the league as well, then there will be another Everton Luton. But I don't want another one because that was horrific a few months ago, and I can't believe how much has changed since then. Of course, you guys prevailed that day, and it was a day where Everton had a lot of chances, and you guys were simply more clinical. Two goals which we really should not have conceded, and set piece goals as well, which is just embarrassing for us because we should have been more prepared in that sense. But we ended up losing, and it's time for revenge. But it's the FA Cup, so it's a bit of a different prospect this time. And firstly, I just want to ask you, how important is the FA Cup to Luton, and is it is the league more of a priority at the moment, or is the FA Cup something you really want to attack?
Yeah, it's a difficult one because obviously being in the position we are, we're in the Premier League looking above us, looking at Everton at the moment, looking at Nottingham Forest, looking at teams just above us, and we're giving it a really good go. And I think there's a genuine belief that we are not one of the three worst teams in the division. I think we've displayed that. I think we've proven that. Um, and yeah, so I think in terms of our survival chances, I don't think the FA Cup hinders that because I still back us to give both a good try. But I think for me, I love the FA Cup. I always have done. I was speaking to you before about entering the FA Cup in the fourth qualifying round during our conference days. So those were always interesting occasions because you played teams that you'd never heard of, kind of thing. Um, so yeah, the FA Cup's always been quite special for me, and the fact that we now enter in the third round, and it takes you one win to get as high as the fourth round. Um, yeah, it makes things a really interesting prospect. And when with Luton having their difficulties against teams that are lower down the pyramid, a game against a fellow Premier League club is actually quite a welcome prospect, which feels very weird in itself to say.
I think both teams were probably quite pleased with the draw, and sometimes it is better to get a team who's lower down in the Premier League than a team in the division below or even a few divisions below. I think that is something that both of us have agreed with when talking before, that sometimes it's better to play a Premier League team because if a really small team from the lower leagues turns up and just sits back, then Everton and Luton are both known for struggling to break teams down when they have to like that. So it'll make for an interesting game, but the story this season of Luton, you have been a massive talking point and you've shocked a lot of people. I imagine a lot of fans who aren't Luton fans are completely bewildered by what they're seeing. Maybe you guys aren't quite as shocked, but the team just look like they're working so hard. There's a sprinkle of quality in there as well with certain people who will be discussed in this show. But there's a few good players there and a team that just looks so united. And Rob Edwards is obviously doing a fantastic job there. And you're now giving yourself a real chance of staying up. And for anyone to say now that they still think Luton are set to get relegated would be completely talking madness because you've got a real chance of staying up now. What have you made of this crazy season so far?
It's incredible to think we're 5-6 months into the season now. It's gone by so quickly, and I've been really impressed with everything that I've seen. Not necessarily surprised because I think when the narrative was built at the start of the season that Luton were dead certs to go down, that we weren't even giving it a go because we only spent like 15 million or whatever it was. I think Luton fans quietly chuckled to themselves because we knew that we've defied monetary expectations for years now. So I think, of course, jumping into the Premier League was a completely different, new territory. We expected it to be very difficult, but we didn't ever think that we were down and out before a ball was kicked. So it's good to see that we're proving something in football. I think we're acting as somewhat of a um, I guess model club to those that potentially don't have big budgets that are sitting in League One, sitting at the bottom end of the Championship. Um, proving a case that Luton, proving a case, sorry, that smaller budgeted teams can do very good things when you have the right people in the right positions. That's both on and off the field. So yeah, it's been really impressive. I still think there's an extra gear to go, which I think is an exciting prospect. There are partnerships within the team. I know we'll get on to he who can't be named in a minute, Ross Barkley, but him and Lokonga have been absolutely fantastic. The central defensive sort of trio might have been conceding a fair few goals, but I think that the likes of Osho and Tiedemann Mengi have been absolutely fantastic. Alfie Doughty is another player that's, I guess, like Mikalenko, players that have probably proven to be two of the best fullbacks, definitely left backs in the division so far. So yeah, from an individual perspective, we've got a lot of players showing Premier League quality. There's players that I feel that we can get more out of during the second half of the season as confidence levels grow. And then Rob Edwards has just been an absolute revelation. He's only been at the club for just over a year, and the impact he's had has been phenomenal.
Yeah, I think you have got that unity now. And when we talk about teams coming up, sometimes they do change too much, and to keep that core is sometimes the right thing to do. And you are right, a lot of fans did just completely write you off at the start of the season, and you're really proving them wrong now. But you have got some really good players as well. Obviously, Albert Sambi is a good player from Arsenal. Obviously, a player that's been at Arsenal and played like frequently for Arsenal at times as well. And Ross Barkley, of course, who he has had quite the journey as a footballer as well. Obviously, started off at Everton. When he was younger, he broke his leg, and there was worries for him getting through. And then when he finally did get through, we saw what a great player we have there. And then he's had a bit of a rocky road, which has led eventually to being quite settled at Luton. But looking at your players individually, I think Alfie Doughty stands out for me as a really, really good player. He's someone who I'll be worried about going down those wings. And he's a fullback that seems so heavily involved, which you wouldn't normally expect from a fullback, but he is. And Carlton Morris, obviously an awkward customer as well. He can really trouble any defenders purely for his presence. And Ross Barkley as well. He has to be mentioned, of course. But if you look at your team, other than Ross Barkley, who are the players that Everton should be really worried about?
Yeah, you mentioned sort of a group there that have been very influential. Morris started the season well, dipped off a bit, and then Adebayo came in, and Adebayo was absolutely fantastic. Morris recently from the bench has done a lot of good things, and I guess that's now a real battle for the starting striking spot. Those two have been going for that, and I think, as Rob Edwards would quite rightly say, that's exactly what you want. You want your two strikers having that level of competition within their own department. We've also got Andros Townsend that's also been an incredible pickup. I think the word you'd associate with him is intelligence, and that's when he has the ball at his feet. That's when he's pressing. That's the instructions he's giving to other players. He's become a really important player. We've also got two other sort of attackers that we've brought. I say with us, but brought from the Championship in Chio Ogbene, who recorded the fastest pace in the Premier League this season. He's absolutely frightening once he gets going. I haven't seen as much as we would have wanted from him in his preferred position because he's had to cover at wing back a few times. But at the start of the season, he was playing on the left with Doughty just behind him, and those two together were absolutely phenomenal. But another player that's been playing on the left since, Jacob Brown. Yeah, I really, really like him. Physically, he dominates opponents. He's quick. He links the play well. And he's just a bit of an awkward player as well. You mentioned Morris being quite awkward in the way he holds the ball up and links the play. Jacob Brown's a little bit similar, but I think he's got a lot more pace going in behind. Yeah, there's a lot of players. Mengi and Osho, two centre backs, have attracted the attention of other Premier League clubs. So I think that's always an indication that you're doing well. Thomas Kaminski in goal as well. I think you look at the data, I think he sits at the top for goals prevented in the Premier League. So you look at every position and you think they're doing a good job, which is all you can really ask for. It's made this January transfer window quite a weird one. We've only added one player so far, and he's gone straight back on loan. It's strange because I think we're comfortable um, even though we're sitting in the relegation spot, which to the majority of other Premier League fans, that's not a good position to be in. But given where pre-season expectations were, given how well we've equipped ourselves and shown ourselves in a good light, um, I'm just confident about what the rest of the season holds.
Well, you can see the exit of the relegation zone, can't you? It's not like you're sat in there and you feel like you can't get out. You can see a path to getting out of that. And with the consistent performance level that you're seeing as well, there is that route to get out of it. And that's what gives you confidence, I think. And some of the players that you mentioned, the goalkeeper, he's done fantastically. And we need to take our chances. That's a big thing that we've struggled to do. And if he's preventing goals as well, the one chance we might have took, he might end up saving it. So that's a difficult one for us. But Andros Townsend, he is a player who I think Evertonians didn't really want to lose. And he had to go because of financial reasons, and he had a massive injury before as his contract started to end, and I don't think that helped his cause really. But if he was in our squad now, he'd be a really valuable asset. And he's good at crossing. He works hard. He's a very clever player, like you say. He's not quite got the pace that he had now, but he's still a very good player. And he also has a moment in him, which we've seen plenty of when he was at Everton. He has a moment to do just a wonderful shot out of nowhere. We've seen one against Burnley once, and he's had plenty over his career, so he's a real threat as well. I don't know what the situation will be on him as to whether he'll start or not. Do you think he will?
I think, yes, again, this is quite difficult. There's so many moving parts. I mentioned Chil Bene. I'd ideally like to see him either on the right or the left, but he might be required at wing back. Um, Townsend has been very good, but I think what we've got in our front three. So if we had Townsend, Adebayo, and Jacob Brown, like we'd had been doing, we've also got three very capable players that if you swap the front three, you don't lose much sort of output because the three coming in are just as good. We've got Chung, Morris, and then you bring Ogbene into the fold as well. Those three are just as capable of causing upsets in the Premier League and FA Cup as well coming into this game. So yeah, it's difficult to know how Rob will go in terms of the players he selects in. But I think this is the kind of game where Townsend's kind of pressing ability is not required as much. So I think there's a real opportunity for us to go about this by really exploiting width with pacey players, and I think that's where somebody like Ogbene would come in against teams that like to keep the ball more and a bit more patient, don't want to play forwards as quickly. I think that's where Townsend comes in. I think that's when he's most effective.
Right, so he may not start because of that. But it's interesting to see how you can see you beating us, and I think down the wings may be the way that you do that. Maybe more so on the right hand side. It depends who plays at fullback. If Nathan Patterson plays, then you might have a better chance at getting through. If Coleman plays, I'll have a lot more faith because he's just a more experienced player and a player who you can definitely trust now. And Mikolenko on the other side is very strong fullback, of course, like you mentioned. And it is going to be an interesting game. But looking at Everton, we're in a situation now where we had this unbelievable run of form, which was just hard to believe, really. And then we went out of the cup, the Carabao Cup, on penalties, and that almost just popped the balloon a bit. It really did. Everton fans were really upset because of the manner in which we lost. It's gutting to go out on penalties, and people weren't too pleased with the way Amadou Onana took his penalty, and it just kind of killed the mood a little bit. Then we had to play Manchester City and Tottenham, lost both of them, but they were good performances, really. And then suddenly it's like, oh, you haven't won in four after we went and got beat by Wolves. So suddenly then the story changes a bit. But we've evened it out a bit more recently. The game against Crystal Palace, the first one, 0-0. Dominic Calvert-Lewin should never have been sent off, but that was all that happened in that game. Then we go and play them again in the replay, and it was a terrible, terrible game to watch. But we edged it 1-0 thanks to an Andre Gomez free kick. So I'm hoping now this can be the start of a bit of a more positive trajectory in Everton's form. But looking at this game, it's one that Everton fans will be thinking we absolutely have to win this. If we really need a cup run, and of course we did well in the Carabao Cup, but Everton are used to winning trophies historically, and we don't do it anymore. And Everton fans, especially the people who are older than me, they've seen everything and they're looking at their team now and thinking like Everton should be winning trophies. So I'd love to see us really go at this cup and make a good go of it. But we've got a massive task in front of us now. And even though it is an ideal draw to get a lower Premier League side, just looking at the way Luton play at the minute, they're just so difficult to deal with. And I think the way that we beat you would probably be just an intense start and getting ahead without the longer you guys can stay organized and stay in that game, that's the way you'll end up beating us. But if we can break that straight away and you're forced to then come out and create chances, that's when you'll struggle because we can then just lock up and we probably won't concede at that point. I think that's how Everton do it. And then, like you say, down the wings, if you've got the pace on Coleman with Ogbene, that could be a big threat for you as well. But on the Everton side, who do you think you're most worried about? Because we are going to play a strong team. You're going to see the players that you usually see, but who are the ones that stand out for you?
Hope, well, I say hoping, but assuming that they're both fit. I think Dwight McNeil is somebody that I think is generally underrated in the Premier League. I think he brings a lot of quality on that left foot, but he's also really intelligent. Some of the passes he picks out. But the one for me, Jack Harrison. Um, I don't know if he's fit, if he's available, but I think he's somebody that I don't understand how he hasn't become a top six player. He's one player that I've always really enjoyed watching, but he's always delivering, no matter what game, no matter what the opponent. Every time I watch him, he seems to deliver, and I think he's another one that's really intelligent with the ball at his feet. Close control is unbelievable.
Yeah, his first touch is amazing.
Oh, immaculate. And he's just so creative. He's always looking to always looking to create, but he's also got the, I guess, maturity not to play a pass if it puts his teammate in pressure, under pressure. Sorry. So he's somebody that I think we have to be very, very careful of. You mentioned Calvert-Lewin and his goal scoring record not being too great, but he's still, regardless of what he's producing in front of goal, he's somebody that's awkward to play against. He's so physical. He's so dominant in the air, but he reads the game really well. And I think he's somebody that may not be producing the numbers at the moment, but is still valuable and still very important in build up. So again, it's that kind of forward kind of triangle, if you want to call it. But then it's also the two defenders, Braithwaite, who I don't know how true this is, but I read that he was linked with Real Madrid, which is crazy to say, but I think he is that good. And Tarkowski as well, who wins absolutely everything and is a source of fantastic leadership. So you go through on an individual basis and you see quality in every position. I mentioned Mikalenko has been sort of regarded on the same kind of level as Alfie Doughty this season as one of the best fullbacks in the division. So yeah, I think I could go over every position and say that, yeah, there is quality there.
Yeah, there are players who can definitely threaten you guys, and Jack Harrison's opportunity to do that will be with those high turnovers and winning the ball back high up the pitch. He works so hard. So if you guys are caught on the ball in your own half, then that's where he's going to really catch you out. And we need to see a bit more end product from McNeil and Harrison because goals wise, assist wise, they haven't been coming lately. But the way that they play, it does sacrifice so much for them going forward because they have to track back so much. So that's probably why you haven't seen as much of them. But when they get going, obviously Dwight McNeil's form at the end of last season was unbelievable. Jack Harrison, on the whole, while he's been at Everton, has been pretty good for us. He's got some good numbers as well for goals and assists, and he is normally involved in the play. Arnaut Danjuma too may start, so you may see one of them come out. And there's a whole story about Arnaut Danjuma. We don't even know if he'll be here at the end of January, but he really needs to step up, and it'd be nice for him to do that in that Luton game because there has been flashes with Danjuma. We do feel like there's something there from him. But back to you guys again, and we have to talk about Ross Barkley. We must talk about him because I know the Evertonians watching this will be thinking, what on earth has happened in this last year or so, I suppose, because he obviously left Everton. We were disappointed and quite unhappy with him, really. He then went to Chelsea. It didn't work out. Villa, Nice. but he's finally settled at Luton, and now you could argue that he's been one of the better players in the league this season. Definitely in the bottom half of the table, he looks probably one of the most talented players in that bottom half, and he's obviously a good player. We know that he carries the ball well. He has a lot of quality, but we didn't know what was going to happen with his career after he left us, and it didn't go the way we really expected. But it seems like it's starting to work out for him now. So, what do you make of Ross Barkley, and how can he impact this game?
Well, Ross Barkley arriving at Luton, I think expectations have been exceeded. I think even the most positive person about his move to Luton has probably been pleasantly surprised by what they've seen. He, I don't even know where to start with him because he has been absolutely incredible. By far the best player I've seen in a Luton shirt. There's even debates among sort of generations further on than me whether he's the best kind of player to ever wear the shirt. But it's just incredible to see what he can do with the ball, the kind of problems he causes. You know, even Man City and Arsenal, he was the standout midfielder against both of those teams. He had a very good game against Liverpool. You'll be happy to know. But yeah, he's just put. He put, I was going to say doesn't put a foot wrong, but that's a lie because he's so brave and he takes so many risks that he does lose the ball sometimes. But more often than not, he produces magic after magic, and yeah, it's the carrying of the ball, it's getting beyond his man, it's the link up he's displayed with alongside Sambi Lokonga. Um, Dominating midfield battles. I think I said this before. Is not something I expected in the Premier League, but dominating midfield battles against Chelsea, Newcastle, even Burnley, which surprised me given that they are a team that like to keep the ball in the middle third. But yeah, those two together have been absolutely phenomenal. And Barkley has been excellent, but I think he's gone to another level alongside Lokonga. Those two complement each other very, very well. And yeah, it's weird to say, and it seems like I'm a fanboy, but I just can't wait to see him play each week. He's just that kind of player that gets you out your seat. And Luton have been on this journey of getting to the Premier League through grit, determination, teamwork, all those kind of factors. But to see a player as technically gifted put on your shirt is just it's a joy to watch, really.
Well, we always knew that he had that ability, and he was great at Everton under Roberto Martinez, but that was 10 years ago now. So to think that he somehow had that major dip and then picked it back up, he's finally enjoying his football again, I think. And I don't think he'll be greeted with the best reception at Goodison because a lot of Evertonians hate him for the manner in which he left, really. He left at a cut price deal in the end and probably could have gone 6 months earlier. So Blues aren't too pleased with him. So I don't think he'll be getting applauded when he comes onto the pitch. But my worry for him scoring in this one is much bigger than it was when we played you the first time. Because I remember speaking to you the first time, and it was like, is Ross Barkley going to play? And it wasn't a case of, is he going to play? Is he going to play well? Since then, obviously, he's come in and he's done fantastically well for you. And I think he'll have a big say in how this game goes because we've not got Abdoulaye Doucouré. Your player in a similar position, obviously a bit further back in your setup, is so important. And us, if we'd have just had him in that slot, we may not be as worried about this game. But that's how football goes, isn't it? And it may not have worked out if Ross Barkley had come back to Everton because there's so much baggage that comes with that as well. But he'll have a big say in this result. But I want to hear what your say is for the result, and I want to hear your prediction for the game on Saturday.
I'm going for the same scoreline as September. I'm going 2-1 to Luton. I've just it's definitely more of a reflection on where I am at with Luton at the moment. We're just feel in such a good place. We feel like we can give anybody a game, and yeah, I just expect us to keep going from strength to strength. The lads have now had a good week and a half rest. I think they're out in Dubai. Tell that to the Luton squad of 10 years ago playing their trade in the conference, they just wouldn't believe you. But yeah, after a well-earned rest, I think they'll be ready to go again. Rob will have them raring to go. He'll speak of the importance of the FA Cup. He'll speak of the importance of just continuing and how this result can play, say performance and result can play a massive part returning to league action as well. There'll be a lot of Luton there. A lot of Luton will travel for this game, and it's just genuinely very, very exciting time to be a Luton fan. And yeah, 2-1 Luton is my guess.
It's great to see the journey that Luton have been on, and you might actually stay up this season. And if we weren't so involved in that situation, I'd be even more full of praise and so pleased to see it happening. Of course, you're a real threat to our Premier League position with the way that you've been going. So I've not quite got as much love for that story, but I'm sure that if both of us stay up, I'll look back, and I'll always look out for Luton now as well, because you are a team that has been through so much and things are finally starting to work out well for you. And that's what we all hope for as football fans, that during the tough times, there is a light at the end of the tunnel, because if you didn't think that, you wouldn't even watch it. So that's what we hope for both sides, that positive future is ahead. But for my prediction, I'm going to go with 1-0 to Everton. I'm going to back us. And I think it'll be a tight game. It's going to be really physical. I think we'll nick it, but it'll be one of those games where it is decided on one moment, whether it's a moment of quality or a set piece. And if we lose to you via a set piece again, I will be furious, because that is one thing that we must avoid. And if you guys want to think about any tactics for set pieces, I'd be taking short corners, because short corners then delivered into the box are where we've conceded most from set pieces this season. So if you speak to Rob Edwards, don't mention that to him, but that is something for Luton fans to look out for. But before we go, I've got a random question for you. We always ask one at the end of every single episode, and you'll remember that from last time. But today we're going to go with, who was your favourite ever non-Luton footballer?
Yeah, again, it's difficult, and I tried to really cast my mind and give a real good reason, but mine would be Stoke centre back Ben Wilmot, because I've played football with him growing up,
Oh, well.
and I think that he'd be I don't know, he probably won't watch, but he'd quite disappointed that I didn't say him. But yeah, he's a fantastic centre back, and one of those that you could tell from very early on would go and play a professional game, because the way he sort of conducted himself, and fantastic footballer. A player that I'd like to see in the Luton shirt as well. He's that good in my eyes. But yeah, he's a very good player. Stoke fans absolutely love him, and he'd probably cost a pretty penny. So not one that I can see actually happen.
Oh, that's an interesting one. There's a personal touch to that as well. Obviously, you know him. That's really interesting. I was thinking you were going to say someone who you've never met in your life, like Messi or Ronaldo, but that's a really interesting one. But thanks so much for coming on today, Billy.
Thank you very much for having me, and yeah, it should be a great game come Saturday.
Yeah, definitely. But do check out Oak Road Hatter podcast, of course, for all Luton content. And I'm sure there'll be a load of post-match reaction after this game. And you might get a few Everton fans coming over if we win. Maybe not if we lose, but we'll have to see. But that wraps up the opposition view for today. Everton versus Luton on Saturday at 3 p.m. It's the FA Cup fourth round, and hopefully the Blues can prevail. Let us know what you think in the comments. Do subscribe to the Toffee Blues. But that's all for now. See you in a bit.